Hi there, I'm Sarah Zarella, a portrait and wedding photographer and your host for Wedding Secrets Unveiled. This is a podcast where we cut through the complexity of wedding planning, leaving you with everything you need to know direct from the industry experts. If you want to simplify your wedding planning, while having fun, of course, you came to the right place. Join me while I guide you through your planning, starting from your engagement to your big day where you say, I do. After photographing for the past 18 years, I am sharing with you tips and tricks to cut through the excess noise because I believe from the moment you said yes, your planning experience should be a magical time in your life. Here you'll find episodes that are fun, stress-free, and straight to the point, with a fresh, honest take about the reality of what you really need to know about planning your perfect day. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. You're in for a treat today. I am so excited to introduce you to Mike Egan from Heavenly Weddings. We are talking all about wedding officiants and finding your perfect person to marry you. So do you even know where to start when looking for a wedding officiant? If not, don't worry. Today we'll be unveiling the secrets and tips of what to look for when searching for a wedding officiant. Mike will be sharing with you his philosophy on weddings, along with some key advice to ask an officiant when hiring them. He will also give you some funny stories to make you chuckle. We will take you on a practical journey when seeking the key component other than your spouse for your wedding ceremony. This is an educational conversation, a fun conversation, and also a practical conversation, all at the same time. So I hope you guys enjoy. So Mike, welcome.
Thanks, Sarah. Nice to be here today.
Could you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, who you serve, and what you do in your business?
Yes. Well, I am a wedding officiant. I've been doing it for 17 years now. I stay pretty much in Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, although I have done weddings in all around the United States. But I prefer to stay in that tri-state area just for driving purposes.
You don't want to be on the road all the time there?
I don't totally want to be driving. Put enough miles on now.
So, Mike, how did you get into this? How did you start marrying people?
Well, about 17 years ago, I had a friend of mine who asked me if I was interested. And I held a position where I could, by statute, I could marry people. So I did do a couple of weddings. But really the main focus, once I decided I wanted to do it, was basically because of my own wedding. We had the big church wedding. We were basically told when to sit, kneel, stand, who's going to play the music, who's not going to. We didn't have a lot of say in our wedding. And as we look back, I wanted to give people that option. I wanted to give them the ability to personalize their ceremony, to do anything, and not have to kind of sometimes jump through some of the hoops that they may have to do. As far as some people didn't feel comfortable about maybe doing pre-Cana classes or doing other stuff that the church may require that we did. So I wanted to give them their options, and by doing that, I think it kind of opened it up to a lot of people who maybe felt comfortable doing it that way. So that's kind of what got me into it, by wanting to give people the ability to have options and to do things that, they wanted to do.
Interesting. So you said about 17 years ago. So it's funny because I've been working alongside of you. I was about to say since day one. So about that, because I started about 18 years ago. So I've been seeing your face up there marrying people for a good amount of my career. So Mike, can you tell our listeners a little bit about your philosophy of weddings?
Yes. So, my kind of philosophy on weddings is I like to try to keep everything kind of laid back, kind of relaxed. I know the couples are very anxious and, nervous, excited. And some people just don't like 100, 150 people staring at them, especially when they're the center of attention. So I try to keep things, during the ceremony very relaxed. I kind of give them little cues underneath my breath to help them out. Prior to the ceremony, before we go down, I kind of do a quick run through with them just so they know what to expect and just to kind of follow my leads. And I think in the long run, that's what most couples want because they're very anxious. Not that they're not, excited and everything, but most people don't like to talk in front of people. Most people don't like to be the center of attention. And I find a lot of my couples are like that. So I try to keep it as, laid back and relaxed as possible.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because you said how you got into it was because of your own wedding and you didn't want to have your couples jump through the hoops that you did. So it's only fitting that you come with a very laid back approach to marrying your couples. Do you do rehearsals?
Yes, I do rehearsals. I would say probably 80 to 85% of my couples like me to do the rehearsal, want me to be there for that. Some of the couples, with the smaller weddings, there's not really a need for it, or smaller wedding parties. But most of my couples ask me to be there, which is nice because we kind of do the whole walking in, walking out, where to stand, how to stand, the handoff between, father and groom, ring presentation, all the little things we do. I try not to do any ceremonial stuff because we want to keep that fresh. But rehearsal, I think, is a very it goes back to the calming thing. It gives them a sense that, okay, I know what's going to happen tomorrow.
So that's interesting. So you'll do the rehearsal as far as like the practical stuff, but you'll keep the actual ceremony components non-rehearsed. So that way it's the first time that they're running through it the day of, but you're right there. You're, like you said, you kind of whisper to your couples a little bit, help them through the whole day.
Exactly.
Is that something that comes with all of your services, or do most wedding officiates do the rehearsal, or is that mostly an add-on, or how does that work for the rehearsal? I
think most officiants do have a small add-on fee for it. Mine is very minimal. I charge $100. It's mostly just to cover my time and gas and whatnot. But most officiants do have a small fee for that, and I think most will offer that. There's not a lot of officiants that I'm aware of that don't offer some kind of ability to do a rehearsal.
When do most officiants show up to a ceremony, or when do you show up? Like, what can the couple expect?
Most officiants, at least I know with me personally, I try to show up about 45 minutes early. And I do that so I can go up and see the couples, whether they're together or separate, go through any last minute thing. One of the biggest questions I get asked when I arrive is, I don't remember anything from the rehearsal. Can we go through it quickly again? So, of course, we try to go through it a little quick with them and just kind of go through and review everything. Me personally, I like to try to get the marriage license witnessed ahead of time. Try to do the little things like that because I don't want to take away from them when they're getting photos and stuff like that and have to pull them aside. And as you well know, photographers don't, they want to do their job too. So I try to do that ahead of time to try to, help them out. And we get that done and we take care of all the business ahead of time. So I do that. And then I go and speak to the photographers. I speak to the people doing music. And certainly speak to the on-site coordinator too, or if they have a day coordinator, do that as well. And just kind of go through things. I like to try to build in little thing like photo ops. So I want to let my photographer know that, at some point during the ceremony, they're going to turn or they're going to do this. And this way here, they can have some nice photos built in. But I don't want to catch, the photographer off guard like, oh, I didn't know they were going to do that. So I try to help them, and I certainly give the cues to whoever's doing music. As far as when I say this, that'll be your cue to hit the music on the way out. So everything flows really nicely, and that's really what I want.
So that's great. So for our listeners who are listening in, they should really consider a wedding officiant to make sure that they do come prior and do prep. I mean, really, one of the things it sounds like you're saying that you do prior is a lot of prep, talking to the other vendors, letting the other vendors know when things are happening, make sure that the sound system's okay. And then obviously, speaking with your couples and calming their nerves a little bit, and then signing that marriage license, which is super important.
Correct.
And I can tell you, as a photographer, a lot of times the time after the ceremony and the time of the reception, it's such a small gap, but such an important time. So even 5 minutes of walking away to sign that marriage license is valid time that's being taken away from their pictures. So if you do all that prior, that's awesome.
Yes, that's what I try to do because I realize that, certainly all the vendors, we're there to try to make the couple's day the best it can possibly be. And I realize that we're all working. We're all trying to do our job too. So if I can benefit a photographer or if I can benefit a musician by getting timing right, by all means, that's what I want to do. I mean, we're all working together. And I think if you do that as a group, if we can work together, even though we're not, all together, it certainly makes it much smoother.
I'm sure a lot of people listening are probably wondering roughly how much they need to budget to set aside for a wedding officiant. So what is the average cost fees, and is there any discounts?
Yep. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I do have a small fee for the rehearsal of $100. I think most officiants will probably, make a small fee of, somewhere in that general area for that. As far as, normal weddings prices, it does vary a little bit as far as, maybe the size of the wedding. Me personally, at Heavenly Weddings, we give a military discount. It's nothing big, but it's a small little discount we give for active or former military people. Just kind of my way to say thank you. And I'm sure there are other discounts that other people offer. I know with elopement packages where there's maybe just 4 people, we also do, a lesser price. We cut our fee in half and whatnot and go from there. But I think as a whole, most people should try to budget somewhere around $600 for everything, including the rehearsal. And that should cover everything. If it is a smaller wedding, of course, you can, take the fee and be a little less than that.
So you do discount if it's a little bit of a smaller wedding. Is that
Correct.
because it's less time for you, or is it just the fact that you're understanding that they're having just a smaller wedding?
Yeah, it's a combination of both, Sarah. I think that's a good question. I mean, I try to, realize that sometimes with a smaller wedding, it's because of budgetary reasons. I think everyone would love to have a nice wedding, but so I try to work with each one of my couples, and I try to give them options. So if, especially this past year with COVID and stuff like that, I did a lot of weddings where there was like 3 or 4 people. And some of the, like even elopement packages we did, I reduced my fee down to like $275 to try to help them out. And again, I'm not spending as much time as I would with a normal couple as well. You don't have the rehearsal. We don't have as much prep work. We just work with them to try to get a ceremony that personalized to whatever they like.
Interesting. You just said the word COVID. So I think that's on the top of everybody's mind right now. So with that said, I'm going to put you on the spot. What some restrictions, or how has the restrictions affected your job, or is there any advice that you can give couples when dealing with the restrictions of COVID? Like, let's just talk about COVID.
So unfortunately, we have to do that, I'm sure. Through this past year, I mean, through 2020, I was still able to marry almost 65, 70 couples.
What do you averagely do? Like, what's your average?
My average is normally around 110 each year.
Okay.
So it was cut back a little. But I also had 53 different couples also postpone their wedding because of last year. So I have them either this year or even have a couple that have gone as far out as 2022. So we have done a few different things. I know I always have hand sanitizer with me. I always, this past year, wore a mask, and everyone did. The only time really the mask came off is right when we were getting ready to do the ceremony. And one of the things that normally we try to be like an arm's length away as far as my couple when I'm standing there doing the ceremony. Over this past year, we have extended it back a little bit, maybe done an arm length and a half or 2 arm lengths away. I still want it to look nice for photos. I don't want it to look awkward, but I certainly want to put the couple at ease too, so they don't have to worry about, being too close during this crazy time.
So interesting. So we talk about masks because masks is such a hot topic right now. I know that we're looking at restrictions right now, loosening, but the question is still that mask. And at least I know my couples, especially because I'm dealing with imagery, a lot of couples don't want the mask in their pictures. So there's so many things that I've been doing to stop that and not have it in the pictures, and I've been very successful. But you just said something that was really important that I want our listeners to kind of focus in on, is that you actually remove your mask during the ceremony, because there's a way to successfully do that because you are standing from a distance.
Correct.
So I think it's important for people to understand that you can have a ceremony without mask, right?
You can definitely have a ceremony without masks. Like I said, I did about 65, 70 last year. I'm happy to say we did not have one breakout of any COVID-related issues during all that. Social media certainly lets me keep in touch with all my couples, and I can see that we had no issues with any COVID-related health issues, which I was very happy about. But again, I think the couples, other vendors, and myself, we all took it very seriously, and we did the appropriate things to still make their day very happy, very important, very special. But we did it in a very safe manner. And I think it can be done now as well as, it was done in the past.
For your couples that are getting married this year with COVID, are you finding them still doing, because, well, let me back up for a second here. I guess it's important for people to understand that we are one of the two industries that were still out working last year. You clearly were marrying people. People are still getting married, whether there was 2 people or 200 people. And as far as I go, Dan and myself, we were out photographing all last summer because, even though they were maybe 5 people at their wedding or 25 people or 15 people or sometimes 100 last year, they still wanted their photos. So clearly they still have to get married and you have to be there and they still want the photos. But I was wondering, are you starting to see couples this year still downsizing, even though they have able to raise their guest count? Are you starting to see the trend still be the smaller weddings, or are people getting back to the normal ceremonies?
I think this year, people are creeping up a little bit, but in the past, I would say my average wedding ceremony was anywhere from 150 to 175. This year, I'm seeing more people doing right around 100. That's one of the questions that I do ask my couples when I meet with them, just out of curiosity, because I want to see, what I need to prepare for as well. But I think a lot so far this year for 2021, I'm looking at a lot of weddings that are trying to stay right around the 100. I think because that's kind of what the regulations say at the moment, and I think they're afraid to ask much more and then have to pull back after.
Is there a way that you conduct the ceremonies a little bit differently based on the amount of people, or no?
As far as the guests go, is that what you're asking me? As far as guests and stuff, or
just is the couple's guest count affect their ceremony at all in any way?
It affects it in the sense that sometimes, especially with social distancing, the projection that I have to do as far as the ceremony, because I want everyone to be able to hear it. If we are doing an outdoor wedding, there are times that I will put some amplification either on the groom, just so it's picked up by what I said, and plus the couple can also be picked up when they're talking. So we have had to make some adjustments to that because they do have the seating a little more spread out, a little more distance. So we don't want to feel as though that we're, as me at least personally, as I'm yelling so people can hear it. I want to be able to project. I want to be able to do it in a proper voice. But I want people to, of course, be able to hear. So we've had to make a few little tweaks.
Interesting. So you talked a little bit about projection and whatnot. Do you use a microphone?
Me personally, I'm not a big fan of putting one on me, only because I do like to try to talk to my couple under my breath a little bit to give them cues. Simple little things like, turn and receive your rings. Don't, and even at the end for photographers, and I'm sure you can appreciate this, Sarah, is I always tell them under my breath, don't forget to hold the kiss, because that's important. And I always tell them you get one chance as your first kiss as husband and wife. So we want to make sure that you hold it. So literally before I actually do the pronouncement, I say to them under my breath, don't forget to hold the kiss. Because I think it's important. I want them to have a nice first kiss photo, and I know the photographers want to get it too. And I know that you guys remind them often.
That is so important. Thank you for bringing that. So listeners, if you are getting married, make sure you hold that kiss. I also think too, it's a good thing to note that some couples do ask for the officiant to jump out of their first kiss, and some couples don't care. So that's just how do you handle that? Me personally, when I do the pronouncement of marriage, I tend to always step to my left, which would be towards the guys if there's a wedding party, because I don't want to be in the center of their picture. I understand that I'll probably be on the edge on the side, but I don't want to, see my mug up there. I've already had my big day. I don't need to be up there and be photographed, So I try to, move to my left every time. And I let them know that. So I let the couples know that I'm going to move to the left. So if for some reason you see me sliding a little bit when I'm making those last few words of pronouncement, you'll understand why. You talked about that you don't need a microphone. So is there any tips that you can give them or the couples when they are working with their officiant in regards to the sound system and the microphone and their entertainment?
Sure. There are times I do use a microphone. It's always good. I like when there's a very professional vendor who will monitor the sound. I think that's important. I can tell you another story a little bit about what I've had to do a few times with some bad sound systems. But I think it's important that people know that everybody can hear what they're saying as an officiant. So sometimes you have to project, and there are little tricks that you can do as far as, will your officiant kind of look up? The biggest thing I can see sometimes, some of the complaints I hear is the officiant never looked up. He just read from the book, and he didn't, all you see is the top of his head the whole time. So I do try to look down. I use it more for a pacing element with me now. I just kind of look down and say, okay, I'm at a point now. Let's look up a little bit. And again, I'm sure, they don't want to see the top of my head through all their wedding photos too. So not that my face is much better, but just the same, we try to do that.
And I'm sure, too, that some of the couples have to get their microphones from their entertainment. So by you not needing it, you might be a little tip of the trade, saving them a little bit of money from their entertainment purposes.
Correct. I mean, some of the music people may charge, $50 just for the amplification and the mic and to be on that. So with me, I mean, it's a small savings in the whole big realm of a wedding, but it does help a little bit, I guess.
I can also tell you it does help for me over here because I don't have to edit out the mic.
Correct.
So it's a win-win.
There you go.
It's interesting. We were just talking about COVID a little bit earlier. I would just love to know, how do you suggest that couples make sure that their personalities match with you, especially now that we're in COVID and people are not able to meet face-to-face prior to the ceremony?
Yep. So I've done a ton of FaceTime, Zoom, Skype, WhatsApp, all these different video things. And I always like to meet with all my couples in person.
Technology guru there, Mike.
I don't know if we're going to go that far, but we got it down. But we certainly try to use these different apps. And I sit, because in the past I always like to sit with my couples and go through it, and maybe they'll have a cup of coffee or whatever, or something like that. But now I do a lot of video chats, a lot more phone calls. Not that I didn't before, but a lot more phone calls. But the video chat is good because I think it shows that you're kind of relaxed. And to be honest with you, I know at times my wife says, I can't believe you're going to wear that pullover Red Sox sweatshirt, for your video thing. And I said, but you know what? They see it. And a lot of times the couples have got the same exact stuff I have on, very relaxed. And I want them to know that, yes, I'm going to be very professional, but I also have that very relaxing side of me. So we do a lot of video chats now. And we kind of go back and forth. And I like to add a little humor when we're in meetings. And I like to keep things relaxed. And I like to kind of tell them things that they may not have thought about that may be humorous.
Well, you talked about how you take a very laid-back approach. So, of course, when you're going to, video Skype or Zoom or do whatever, you're going to be you. I mean, I could say, just working alongside of you for all these years, you definitely take a laid-back approach, but at the same time, it's very professional. And your ceremonies are awesome. They're done correctly, but yes, you're right. Like when I see Mike Egan on the job, I know what to expect, but you also, you do. I see you. You float around to all the vendors. You make sure everybody knows what they're doing, and it's just very, very stress-free, Mike.
And that's what I try to do. And believe me, I don't want to step on anyone's toes and tell them how to do their job, because they're much more better professionals at their job than I am. But I do try to help them in little tiny ways and different things that I can do. And they're great with me. I mean, they'll come and just say, hey, this is where I'm going to be, or is it okay if I, go behind you, or, is it okay if I do this? And I'm free. And I've told many photographers in the past, feel free to, just put your camera on my shoulder if you can reach. I mean, I'm tall, so, whatever you want to do that helps you get a better photo is fine with me.
So basically what you're saying is the key is just making sure that you meet with your wedding officiant, however that will be. Just meet with them.
Correct.
Just meet with them, figure out what their philosophy is, and they should know if it's a right match or not.
That's a huge thing. You have to meet with all your vendors, and I think wedding officiant is big because you want to be able to meet with them. And I go out of my way to, like I said, try to do video chats, meet in person if we can, phone calls, whatever they want. I make myself available to them because I want them to have a comfort level of the decision they're making.
Absolutely. All right, Mike, we are going to take a short break. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you like what you're hearing, I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. And don't forget, you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. And I would so appreciate if you left a fabulous review on Apple Podcast. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support. And now, let's get back to the episode. Hey, friends, so we're back here with Mike from Heavenly Weddings. I am sure a lot of you guys are wondering what he wears at weddings. I know, but I'm going to ask Mike to tell you what he wears at weddings.
So 95% of the time, or maybe closer to 100, but I wear a nice black suit, white shirt. And one of the things I always do ask all my couples is, what color tie do you want me to wear? I ask that because I want my tie color to at least be blending in with whatever their wedding colors are. If they have greens and blues, I don't want to show up with a red tie. And photographers will get mad at me for wearing something ugly too, right? That doesn't blend. But I want to make sure that I do that. But I always wear, black suit, white shirt, black dress pants. I have been asked to wear robes a few times, which I'm not a big fan of, but I have done it a few times for my couples.
So you do have the robe if they want to have the robe.
I do have the robe if they want. I'm happy to say that over the last 6 or 7 years, nobody's asked.
Fair enough.
So it's good.
So if you want to hire Mike, don't ask for the robe.
Exactly.
Mike, I would love to know, have you ever had a couple pass out, no show? I mean, give us some funny stories here. You've seen it all, I'm sure, and just, humor us here.
Yep. No, I have seen a lot. I am proud to say, and one of the things that I pride myself on is I have never lost a bride or groom at the altar yet. I've never had one faint. I've never had one throw up or get sick or anything like that. I have had a couple very close. I had a bride probably 8 to 10 years ago, and she was literally swaying. And the groom's looking at me, and I'm like, grab her hands, like hold her under my breath. And her name, I forget, to be honest. I'm just going to say Mary. Yeah. But I said, Mary, under my breath. And she kind of like glazed-eyed look at me. And I could tell that she was like getting ready to go. And I just said to her, I have no idea why, but the movie Bull Durham came into my head where Kevin Costner was trying to calm down the pitcher. And he said, breathe through your eyelids. So I said to the bride, I said, Mary, just breathe through your eyelids. It'll help you. And I could see her actually thinking and actually like, how do I breathe through my eyelids? But you know what? It got her mind off what she was really nervous about, and it got her thinking about something totally different for a minute. And after the ceremony was over, she gave me a big hug, and she goes, I have to ask you a question. I said, yeah. She goes, what the hell does that mean? I have no idea what you just said. How do you breathe through your eyelids? And I said, exactly. I said, that's exactly. She goes, oh.
Well, there's your laid-back approach.
That's the thing. I just try to give her a little thing. I did have a mutual friend of ours who I did her wedding, and she was getting a little stressed at the rehearsal, which was funny because she was a vendor, and I won't name her, but we were joking around, and she's running all over the place, and I think she has that vendor blood where, you run all over the place, right. You want everything done.
Yeah.
And I looked at her, and I said, look, 2 things are going to happen tomorrow. I said, 1, you're going to show up, everyone's going to get married, everything's going to go off on perfectly, and it's going to be nice and smooth. She goes, what's the second one? I said, the second one is I'm going to show up, I'm going to slap you, then everything's going to go smooth, and you're going to get married. And she looked at me, and then all of a sudden she just starts laughing because she knew, of course, I was kidding. But sometimes, you just have to try to keep things a little more, at ease, and they kind of need something
need it.
Like that. So we kind of do that. But
that Dan and I had in one bride pass out at the altar. So it was a church ceremony, and it was actually kind of warm. I'm not gonna lie. It was warm, and she had a moment. She passed out. It was quick. It was they had to stop, and and the rest of the day she was fine. But it was it's nerve wracking for people. They're on stage basically. I mean, and not everybody likes that.
No. Yeah. They definitely don't. And again, that's why, I hear that a lot when we do our initial interviews. Like, I don't want to be in front of people, and I don't want to say much. And, I always say, so it sounds like you want the kiss ceremony. You want to keep it short and sweet. And they all start laughing, and they go, yes. And I've even had some couples where they, we've minimized the ceremony down to like a brutal 10 minutes, which I know is awful for photographers and everybody else. And when I showed up, she goes, yeah, I don't think we want to do this reading. We're going to do we need to try to get it down to 5. No. And I literally have to tell them, no, I'm sorry. We cannot. You've spent all this money. You're not going to stand there for 5 minutes. And I don't want to do a 5-minute ceremony because everybody else has to do their stuff. And they don't want to go, some people would come in late and they'd really be walking back up the aisle. So I said no, and they laughed and they're like, okay, Mike, okay.
Well, it's true. I mean, all joking aside, I mean, that is like, when I'm on the phone with my couples, I say, "Oh, how long is your ceremony?" And some people say about a half an hour, and that's the typical. Some people are like, "Oh, it's gonna be 10 minutes," and I literally am like, "Okay," and because I realize what we're gonna need to do. We're gonna be sprinting. I have to sprint to one side, to the other side. I have to be center aisle, and I'm like, "All right, I got this. I'm gonna put my sprinting shoes on." Mm-hmm. But you did say something earlier that I want to go back on. You said something about a microphone story. So what is this microphone story?
So one time I was at Rosecliff Mansion in Newport, and as you know, it's always a little windier there. It's very open, and I had a music person who I hadn't worked with much, and they said, they pay for this. They want to put this on you, and they had the little stupid black little fur thing for the wind, supposedly, which was basically nothing. It was a feather.
That's a microphone.
It is a microphone. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes, it's a microphone that has a little like feather cover to try to block the wind. So I said, okay. I said, that's fine. I'll do it. I don't have a problem. Just please make sure if it gets funny, I don't want there to be static or cracking or wind through the whole thing. So, oh yeah, okay, I'll be on the thing. Well, we started the ceremony and the wind did pick up a little and it started getting windy, and you could hear that kind of noise. And then the whole system started cracking. And I looked over, and he was nowhere to be found. Like the
musician?
The people who do it. Nowhere to be found. So I looked at them, and now the bride and groom are kind of looking at me like, what's all this crack? So I kind of pointed to them, and then it got to the point that I just reached behind, grabbed the battery pack, took the mic, and I threw it behind me. I said, I'm not going to do this because that's all people are hearing. It's just crackle, crack. So really that was one of the reasons why I'm like kind of against it. There are some great music people out there and who, really stay on the board. And there's, the people, they know who I'm talking about, but those certain people really monitor the board and they do a good job. And I don't mind wearing a microphone if the couple wants me to do it with those people because I know. But I do tell the couples that, keep this in mind. If it's windy, it may pick up on the wind noise and the different stuff. And a lot of times people just go, I don't want it. And I always tell them that story is like, I don't want to have to take off my microphone in the middle of the ceremony and throw it behind me because it just doesn't sound good.
Yeah, so basically if you're listening to this and you decide to have a microphone, just make sure that the person who's providing it, which is usually your entertainment, is going to be there throughout the whole ceremony to make sure that they are manning that board.
Correct. Right? And the one other thing I will say about microphones, and I plead with all my couples and all couples everywhere, never ever get a stand microphone because it's in all your photos.
Hallelujah.
It looks terrible. So please, if you're going to use a microphone, use a lapel mic or use something like that. Don't use some microphone stand. It just looks bad unless you're putting it way to the side for like a reader or something like that, but you don't want it in your photos.
It's interesting how we all have these little tips and tricks in our industry. Like you talk about, don't have the microphone stand. I know with me, I always tell my couples at the reception to not have anybody who's doing speeches or blessings to read off their cell phone. We are in the digital age. Nowadays, who does read off a paper? But you have to transfer it to paper because
Correct.
In your video and your pictures, reading off that cell phone, it dates the picture, by the way, because cell phones change.
Correct.
And B, it looks silly. So yes, listeners, please, no standing microphones. And just a side tip, no cell phones at your reception reading.
Yes.
Mike, do you have to do any type of training to do what you do?
You can go, there are different things. When I first started doing this, by legislative statute, I could perform weddings by another job that I hold, so I could do it. But you can go online and you can become a non-denominational ordained minister. You can be ordained and you can do weddings. What I will say is don't just go online and do that. Go and talk to another officiant. I have worked with other officiants when they first started to try to help them, give them ideas, almost a training thing, or go online and see. There are, pages out there. Even Facebook has what Wedding Officiants of America. There's different coalitions. They'll go out. They're great sounding boards. I'm part of a few of those pages where new officiants will ask like different questions, and we're there to try to help them too as far as that goes. But yes, don't just show up for your first wedding and just think, oh, I'm going to read off a piece of paper. There's so much more and so much training you should really do.
It's funny that you say that, because I do feel that sometimes something that's very special that I see is when couples don't have a wedding officiant, an official one. They actually have like their father or their friend. I mean, that's great. I mean, it is great. I think it's something nice and special to add to your ceremony. However, like you said, it's not a wedding officiant that's been doing this time after time after time. And so there are these small things that sometimes people forget to do.
Correct.
I can tell you one of the number one things being a photographer, even though I think it's super special, I'm not trying to tell people not to have their father or their best friend marry them, but they do forget some of the fundamental aspects.
Yes.
One of them is asking. So basically, when a bride walks down the aisle, everybody rises, right?
Correct.
But who tells them to sit?
Yeah.
The wedding officiant.
That's where the officiant should do that. Correct.
Right. Most of the time when I see a couple not hire a wedding officiant that officially does this, but it's more like a friend or whatnot, they forget. So please, listeners out there, make sure your wedding officiant asks people to sit down, because then you know who's asking them? Me. I literally walk the aisles and I just motion my hands like the sit. And also too, who tells them to rise?
Correct.
So there's these small things that you make a good point. Like there's no official training, but it's so important to have someone's experience.
There is. It helps if you talk with somebody who's experienced in doing it. And there are things online you can go and look and give you hints and suggestions too.
So Mike, is there a story that you can share with our listeners about a time when, basically your experience had to prevail? And
yeah, there are definitely a couple of times that are very unique and different things have come up. One time I was in Newport at one of the big venues, and we were right near the water, and we had probably 200 guests. Beautiful day, probably 85 degrees and sunny, nice breeze, and we start the ceremony. Everything's going perfect, and about a quarter of the way through the ceremony, all of a sudden, we see about 8 seagulls flying right over our head, and they're just circling, and I know that now. I look out and I can see people looking up going, oh my God, is the seagull going to just all over us and all over the bride and all over the groom? And really the attention all started going more on the seagulls than actually the ceremony. So at that point...
yeah, I mean, that's like a dead ringer for good luck right up there,
Exactly. I mean, getting pooped on by a seagull during your wedding. So I had to kind of, in my own way, just try to figure out a way to kind of draw people back. So basically, I just said to everyone, because it was such a beautiful day, I just said, does anyone have an umbrella to protect the bride? Because it was so beautiful, the last thing anyone would have would be an umbrella. But everybody kind of chuckled at that. They kind of looked back. The seagulls kind of flew off, and the attention kind of got back on the bride and groom, which I thought was important, because I don't want their wedding day to be remembered as Seagull Fest or, something crazy. But it did kind of, bring people's attention back to the ceremony, and we got it going again.
Good. I was wondering, is there any small little things or small secrets that you suggest that couples who are about to say I do take in consideration for their ceremony, like little nuggets?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some things that I suggest to all my couples. Things that, 17 years ago I didn't suggest, but I didn't know. But as I kind of went through the years, you kind of learn these little things. And like I tell all my couples, when we talk, I said, one of the things you have to do is make sure you both have a pack of Tic Tacs. And they ask me, Tic Tacs. They look at me and they're like, what, for bad breath? And I'm like, well, right when you come down the aisle, I'm going to have you put 3 or 4 in your mouth, 2 or 3, 4 in your mouth. And it'll help with moisture in your mouth. It'll give you some moisture. You're going to be nervous. You're going to be anxious. It's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. It could be windy. Your mouth is going to dry out really quickly. And then when you go to speak, you're going to sound, like you're hitting puberty all over again, or, so the Tic Tacs will just kind of it's just a mental thing too. It's just little things like that. And I always tell them, and then you're not going to make a funny face when one of you have really bad breath. Your breath will be a little bit better with the Tic Tacs. Granted, a quarter of the way through the ceremony, they're going to be gone and melted. I say Tic Tacs because they're really small and they'll melt quickly. But just little things like that. I do, the one thing I know, like the best man and maid of honor do a lot of things, but the one thing at the rehearsal I will always tell the maid of honor is make sure that the bride eats. Make sure she hydrates. We don't mind if she has liquid courage, as I call it, a sip of alcohol, but make sure she has water, make sure she eats, because it is a long day. And after the wedding, then you have, photography and all this stuff. So make sure you eat. And that may be one of the reasons why nobody has passed out or anything, because they do try to hydrate and eat too.
That's great. That's great little like tips that you just gave us. All right, Mike, so our wrap-up question. What are some key points that couples should be asking a wedding officiant when they are inquiring to make sure that they are working with a professional to ensure that their wedding day is an absolute perfect event?
So, some of the things that you have to, I think they should be asking are, what are all the services that you offer? We know that you're going to come and, do the ceremony, but do you offer, rehearsal? Will you help us with instructions on where we should be getting the wedding license, prior to the wedding? What I also do is I let the couple know that I will be filing the license, and hopefully now everyone's going to be going on honeymoons. When they come back, they can reach out to me, and I will help them with how to get a copy of the marriage license, a certified copy. And what I also do is just a little added bonus I try to do is I try to give them instructions on the name change process for the bride, and give her what you should do for a second and third. I just think it's important from the very first meeting all the way to, when things are all done and wrapping up and they come back to the honeymoon, that you're there, because they still have questions about the ceremony and the wedding and different things that I handle. So that's one of the big things I do too. So I think a big thing too when I meet with couples, like I said earlier, is personalities. Sometimes, I want to make sure that, my personality fits what they are looking for, and I want to make sure that they're comfortable with me as well. There are, some people most people want things a little more laid back, like I mentioned. Some people, I've had a question, matter of fact, just last week, I had a couple as kind of what's your philosophy on weddings, like, as far as how you speak and everything. And like I always tell them, I want to be heard but not seen. I don't want to have to.
It's a great tidbit.
Yep. I don't want to have to interject myself into your ceremony. It's your big day. So I want people to hear the words that we put together. I want them to hear the ceremony. I want it to have meanings, but I don't want to take away from my bride and groom. I think it's important that even though they may not want it, they're the focus of attention.
So basically your 3 takeaways for them is what services do you offer, the pricing, and does your personalities match?
Correct. I think those are all big, if you have to pick 3, those are 3 of the bigger ones.
Well, thank you, Mike, so much for joining me on this week's episode of Wedding Secrets Unveiled. You helped our listeners become one step closer to their journey of a stress-free wedding planning. Can you tell everyone where they can find you?
Yes. There's many different places they can do. My web address, if you want, is heavenlyweddingsinri.com. You can certainly find me on Facebook. I have a Heavenly Weddings page. And I'm on Instagram, Mike Egan Heavenly Weddings. And feel free to check on The Knot or Wedding Wire, any of the big venues. You can see reviews up there on me as well. And certainly my phone number as well. You can reach out and call me at any time, which is located on my website as well.
For our listeners, we will have Mike Egan from Heavenly Weddings information on our episode show notes, which you can find right on our blog, on our website page, which is sarahzarella-podcast. Thank you again, Mike, so much for joining us, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you I think I'm actually working with you in the next couple weeks.
That's great. And thank you so much for inviting me. It was great to be here with you. Wish you nothing but success with this, and of course, I love working with you, so we'll see you soon.
Thank you for listening to Wedding Secrets Unveiled. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you something. I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. We love photographing while having fun, of course. Check out our podcast page on our website for our show notes along with upcoming episodes with your local wedding experts. Listen in as we help you plan your epic event. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. I would so appreciate if you left a review for us on Apple Podcasts. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support and let us know what you think. If you know any wedding experts that would like to be a guest, we have a link directly on our website where they can let us know. Thank you for listening.